This is going to be like the continuation of experimentation with this bow. Going to go ahead and cut it down and make it a takedown. Upgraded to epoxy resin instead of what is a vinyl resin, Bondo. That was at the suggestion of one of you guys watching, because I was having struggles with getting it to adhere to the main side of the bow. So hopefully this will work better. And if it does, these guys right here will be on my, or I'll have a link for those. Put it that way. I'll put a link down in the description to pick that stuff up. Not proven to be any harder to deal with than the Bondo epoxy was, or Bondo's not an epoxy, so that's kind of why we're going through this. All right, pretty messy. This seems to be working a lot better. And guys, I'm just going to continue to wrap this end for end and save you from having to watch. All right, got that all glued up. I ended up having to make a second batch of that epoxy. Wasn't quite enough wrap to give me the girth that I was looking for through that grip, and so I had to cut a few more pieces of fiberglass as well, get everything put in. All right, fresh out of the clamps. Everything looks like it went pretty well. You can kind of see the sheen of the epoxy on there. So now I've got to try and break it apart. Yeah. That went together real well. All right, so I put the string on her there. You can see this comes apart very easily. Like, it needs no coaxing to come apart. So we got a really well designed sleeve there, and then I got string on it with no it's solid. Now I glued on these extra pieces right here just to make sure that the wraps didn't go out of bounds. They will then be cut off, of course, and then the grip will just be put into place from there. Yeah, no muss, no fuss. That is that turned out great. we've got the grip pretty well shaped out, we need to turn our attention to getting these limb tips narrowed down. You can see the thickness on them is about the size of my thumb, or the width of my thumb. So we'll want to check first for any lateral movement on these limbs and take that out, and then just go on with narrowing them in general. So here's a view of the overlay going on right there, and then with a little bit of shaping, what I'm hoping to accomplish here. Now, this is obviously going to be thinned out a lot more than this. Still almost index finger width on there, and we need to get thinner than a pinky to get the acceleration out there at the tips the way we want them. Take just a few shots here, and ultimately this is to find out, you know, how the bow is actually performing in the hand. So where the arrows land is not nearly as important as how things feel when it's shot. Sounded weird. There's a lot of vibration in this bow. We got a lot of work to do on the tips yet. Here's how those tips finished out. You can see they're much narrower now, and really rounded out quite a bit to take a lot of the mass off at the tips of the bow. And you can see too that I've gone almost like cylindrical here on the actual limbs themselves. So rounded all the corners over as much as possible, and really removing, like I said, all the mass I possibly can from the tips. I am going to, before we get this thing shooting in, go ahead and make a very low stretch string. So I'm gonna ditch the heavy string and go with a lighter not zero, but a very low stretch string, and see if we can't make this thing perform just even a little bit better. It occurs to me I came out here without a shooting glove or a thumb ring, but here we are with you can see very narrowed tips here. And if you recall from last video, the string twang, listen to this one. So there's the sound of this string. This is a dedicated string for this particular bow. Hand shock's gone. And I think I got some pretty decent arrow speed given its draw weight. At this point, I've put probably somewhere between 100 and 150 arrows through this bow. We're still hanging on to 3/16 of an inch of positive tiller. Got a new string on it, of course, a dedicated string. And seems to be shooting really pretty well. So pleased in that regard. It's still coming apart and going back together like a champ. I think the epoxy that I used for this project was a winner in comparison to the resin that I was using, that Bondo resin. So we'll not be using Bondo ever again. And the resin that I did use on this, I will put down in the, or put a link in the description if you want to use it, along with all the other materials it takes to do a sleeve like this. At this point, guys, it's just a matter of getting all the finishing touches going. So we are sanded to a 220 smoothness here. When you're sanding, or in between sanding, or once you've gotten to a nice smooth finish, you want to take a wet rag, you guys, and go over everything with a wet rag. And what this does is it raises the grain on all the wood. And by doing so, it gives you the opportunity to knock all that down again. And we'll just keep wetting down in between sanding sessions to make sure we get all of the little whiskers sanded off of here. And as you're finishing this out, guys, nice long strokes. You don't want to have like overlapping short, this business. Should be nice long strokes here as you're reaching the final stages. Uninterrupted sanding strokes. Alright, it's all finished up. A lot of fun to shoot. If I'm not dropping arrows. And the hand shock is pretty much gone. And shooting 3 fingers here. This can is the luckiest can I've shot at. Really enjoy shooting this bow. Yeah, turned out really good, you guys. Thanks for joining me this week with the finish of this particular bow, the scrap wood bow, Takedown. Experiment, the whole thing. Guys, I'll catch up with you next week with our next build.